Hello, this is LaNée Javet, CEO and founder of Coalsire.com, and I am coming to you today with the man, Mr. Paul C. Brunson. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm great. I'm fantastic.
Yes, that's how I feel too. I am so energized. I've been like on cloud nine for the past 2 or 3 days since I reached out to you, asking you to speak to me, and then the fact that you actually responded and replied. I'm so humbled. Thank you so much for taking time to sit.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm humbled by the invite, so thank you.
So for the people that may not know you, can you tell them who you are and what you do? I want to make sure that there's justice done to your bio. And speaking of which, I did go to your website and I did read your bio, and it was awesome.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You know, I've got the two bios up. I have my casual bio and my professional bio.
I like the beer bio.
The beer bio, yeah. That's the casual one. You know what? At the end of the day, I am, my name's Paul Carrick Brunson, and I'm probably most recognized now just because of the TV stuff that I've done around matchmaking. So I was the first full-time Black matchmaker in the world, which that in itself is like crazy to be the first. But I've grown a matchmaking agency now. It's one of the most influential. We're an award-winning matchmaking organization. So that's kind of one big thing, one big category. Also, I'm involved with a lot of television projects. Formerly hosted a show on the Oprah Winfrey Network. I currently host a weekly syndicated show for Black Enterprise called Our World, and we focus on very relevant stories in the Black community around business and entertainment and the nonprofit world. Also, I have a deal with ABC, where I'm working on a really big show for ABC. It's going to air next year in 2016. Then I also have a movie project at the very beginning of this year. Sony Pictures, along with Devon Franklin Entertainment, they acquired the rights to my story. And so we're working on a movie about me, and that should be out in a couple of years. So that's kind of like another big chunk. And then the last big chunk, but last but not least, is I'm really passionate, just as you are, about entrepreneurship and around business. And so there's a lot that I do around there. And I've just launched a new company with my brother called Convo, which is helping entrepreneurs to increase our social capital, in particular, multicultural entrepreneurs. So those are the big three categories. Then on top of that, I'm a dad. And I'm married and all those things. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Is that the tech company? So when I was reading, when I actually went to your page, paulcbrunson.com, I read the initial page and it said tech company, but it didn't say what. So is that the tech company?
That's the tech company.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm super passionate about it, and just a quick footnote is I think every business now is literally a tech company. Mm-hmm. Like every business is a tech company, and so that is mine.
Awesome. So we're gonna hit. Okay, so how I want to kind of run this for the people who do not know why I'm sitting with Mr. Brunson. There was a clip that aired on Marriage at First Sight that was very controversial with regards to Black men and Black women. The clip basically said that Black men are not interested in Black women, and then it turned around and showed another clip of Black women saying they were interested in Black men. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the Black matchmaking, because I think that is so cool. I remember when I first heard about you, I was like, there's Black matchmakers out there? Because what you see is like Match.com, eHarmony, things of that nature. And when you go to those websites, they are predominantly not for us. And or you see internet dating websites, your Black People Meet. There's a really hot one out there right now. Shout out to my boy, Joseph Dixon, Real Black Love. But I did not realize that there were really Black matchmakers out there that really take the time, energy, and effort to work within our community to see our families be prosperous, to see our families do good, and to deal with the myths. And that's really what made me reach out to you. Can you talk to us about what you do as a Black matchmaker?
Sure. So matchmaking, just to give the audience a quick backdrop, is matchmaking is an industry that really is the second oldest industry in the world, like right behind prostitution. Prostitutes, and then there were matchmakers. But really, matchmaking does go back a long time. And if you look at a lot of cultures, especially the Jewish community, you look at Hindu, for example, a lot of communities, you'll see that there were people who didn't necessarily call themselves matchmakers, but they basically acted in the role of taking two people and putting them together specifically for the reason of marriage. And so during the late 1960s, early 1970s in the United States, you had the rise of matchmakers come out of these come from non-traditional communities. So you had the non-Jewish, right, matchmaker, the non-Hindu matchmaker, right, came into vogue. And then as of, the kind of early 1990s, mid 1990s, you had matchmakers starting to make their way onto television, and then the profession became even more in vogue. That being said, while there are thousands of matchmakers in the United States, there are only, my estimate is less than 100 are full-time matchmakers. So there are very few full-time matchmakers. The dating industry is dominated by online dating sites. Now, what does a matchmaker do? A matchmaker is much different from an online dating site, right? I think of like the online dating site as,
Fishing.
yeah, I mean, they're actually like the army soldier, right? They're like the enlisted army soldier. But a matchmaker is like a ranger, right? It's like a Green Beret, it's a specialist. And what a matchmaker really does is a matchmaker acts as a head hunting specialist who sits down with a particular person, learns everything they can about that particular person, helps to really coach that person up to the point where they're ready to take on someone else in their life, because not all of us are ready, right, to take on someone else in our life. Mm-hmm. And then we go about finding qualified matches for that particular person, right? So I don't believe that a matchmaker can always find you a husband or a wife, right? That's between two people. But what a matchmaker can do is, in a very efficient way, present high quality potential matches for you. And that's exactly what we do. And we, by the way, we work with clients of all ethnicity, right? Of both genders. It just so happens that I'm Black. And I think as a result of me being Black, right, and we have a predominantly Black base, large Black base of clients.
And I think so. And I think that base and understanding of the pool of candidates of men and women is what makes you qualified to have this discussion about marriage at first sight. So but before we get there, still, how long have you been a matchmaker?
This will be my 6th year being a matchmaker.
And why did you decide to become a matchmaker? Let the people know that.
Sure. So, well, as you know, I'm Jamaican.
Jamaican man.
we have at least 8 jobs. At least. And so when I was, this is 2007, I was working for a very wealthy Turkish family. I was actually managing money for them. My background is in business and finance. But I also had a nonprofit organization that I kind of ran in my off hours. And this nonprofit organization, we provided test prep to underserved youth. And that was mostly Black and Latinos that lived in inner cities. And so in DC, summer of 2008 in DC, I'm running this camp, and we had 100 high school students in this camp, all Black and brown kids. Not one had 2 parents in the household. Not one had 2 parents. And that was when I first began to see the connection between the strength of your household and your academic prowess, or the strength of your household and whether, how you acted socially. I began to connect the two and saw all of the benefits that came from a 2-parent household, right? A nuclear family. And it was from there that led me into matchmaking. I literally went from there and then spent a year and a half just studying, not just, dating industry, but really going back to study anthropology, and went back to school to study sociology, and really understanding what the nuances are around how we grow up and how that impacts who we are as adults.
So when you saw this clip from Marriage at First Sight,
present us with some challenges because of his deal breaker around Caucasian women. Many of our African American men have no interest in marrying an African American woman.
I've never dated an African American woman.
I would prefer the person that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life to not be my own race.
I pretty much just date outside of my race.
Many of our African American women want husbands who are the same race.
I never dated outside of my race. Chocolate. chocolate, dark skin. I prefer a black man.
They are successful. They are ambitious. They are beautiful. We want to have the opportunity to match them.
Your video said you sat there for 5 minutes. You
Right.
took a moment to process it, to make the decision as to whether or not you should speak on it. Why did you take that time?
I'm glad you're asking me that question because I did take, that full 5 minutes. And the reason why, so my initial reaction was I was really disgusted by the clip. I was disgusted by it. And the reason why I was disgusted by it was not just my experience being in the matchmaking industry, right? It wasn't just that. It was also my experience being in television, right? I have been a talent on shows. I've worked in the casting process. I'm a producer on a television show right now. So I understand the television side of it as well as, the nuances, the human nature of it. And I was disgusted because it was very clear what the message that was being presented was. It was very clear what that message was. And everyone who watches the clip will see that the message was essentially what you just said. The message was, Black women, you should have no hope in ever marrying Black men because Black men are not interested in you. That was it. Like, that was it. Now, the reason why it took me the 5 minutes was because I was thinking, okay, first, this is a subject matter that, in my mind, it's a tired subject matter. It's something that we, especially as Black people, I should say as African Americans, because I don't think this gets the level of debate outside of America as it does in America, but it does get, it still gets a level of debate. But this is something that we have been, aggressively debating now for many, many, many years, really since 2008, 2009, when we first started seeing a lot of these reports pop up. And when you saw dating experts and gurus really become in vogue around that 08, 09 year, that's really where you saw a lot of this. So that was one, is because it's been such a long debate. Secondly, is that, so boom, thinking of the business side of it is, I know that nothing ever lands on television without there being a very specific reason for it. And this is something that I think is very important for us all to understand, is that nothing on TV lands there by accident. Everything is done very consciously because, think of just the economics of it. Mm-hmm. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce just a few minutes of television, no matter what the network is. And if you're spending that much money, right, with the production team, on editors, you're spending that much money, you want to be very careful in what you say and what you don't say. Mm-hmm. And so they were very well aware of what they were saying. Now, we could talk about some of the reasons why they were saying it, but I knew that they were aware of this, right? Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about that, and I knew that if I commented, I would be playing in to this machine that they want, right? And I know they're very happy with the results, right? and they're happy that we're talking about it now, And so I weighed that, and then I also, quite honestly, I weighed the fact knowing that if I said something about this particular topic, that no matter how genuine I was attempting to be, no matter how positive I was attempting to be, your sign in the back, which I love, is be kind and generous and inspire. That was what my attempt was. But I knew that once you comment on a controversial topic, that there will always be people who kind of rain down and try to crush you or crush your message. And the problem with social media is that when you put out a message on social media and you get that long, all those comments, is that we all fall into groupthink, right? It's basic sociology, social psychology. We fall into groupthink. So if you see the majority of comments going one way, we will not only be impacted by visually what we saw in the caption or in the video, but we'll be impacted by those comments and we'll be swayed by those comments, even more so than what we see in the video. So all of these things were going on in my mind, and that's the reason why I waited the 5 minutes. And at the end, I was like, oh, hell. I gotta do this, right? Because this is something that I'm passionate about. So I went ahead and made my video.
You even threw in a BS. You was like, "This is BS."
Yeah, and I don't curse. As you see, I don't curse. Like, that's something that So BS. That's a very strong word.
That's how I knew You were there, right? So I'm going to read this. This is what made me reach out to you. This statement, and it was like if you guys watched the video, I literally watched the whole thing because this is like with 1 minute and 35 seconds left. This is what you said. Stop sharing ignorance. We don't need any more myths to be perpetuated because these myths that you are perpetuating, they begin to impact belief, and that belief begins to impact hope. And guess what? You have no authority over our hope. You don't get that. Oh, when you said that, I was like, let me email him right now. Because that is so true. That's what media does. That one of the reasons why I created Closire is to go against the media. Like, no one tells our story the way that we know it, the way that we live it.
Right.
Reality TV doesn't tell our story the way that we live it. I mean, the Cosby Show, for what it was, that's more of what I live and what I see than what you have on television today. And nobody tells that. We see, the cops killing us. We see the ratchet TV. We see what's happening, in videos. But nobody's really speaking up and talking about how we really live. We really do get married and have kids. We really do go to college. We really do have businesses. Like, we have regular lives just like everybody else. But nobody ever talks about our realities. And so when you said that, and you were talking about stop perpetuating these myths, that hit so close to home. And I wanted more people to get an opportunity to hear from you and to hear about what really is happening in our communities from that perspective.
I love this topic, and if I can, I just want to give you an example, because this is such an important example for me, is that, so in our matchmaking industry, or should I say in our matchmaking company, what's really fascinating is that I live in Washington, D.C., and we predominantly have clients in Washington, D.C., and also New York, all right? Now, some of the clients that come to us from New York and Washington, whether they are female or male, right, they'll come to us and they'll say, in our intake process, they'll say, oh my God, I live in Washington, D.C., it's the worst place in the world to date. You can't find anybody. There's nobody single who's about anything. There's no good men or good women in D.C. That's the way it is. Or they'll say the same thing about New York. Then, literally the same day, we'll do an intake with someone else. And they'll say, oh, you know what? I live in D.C. It's the best place in the world to date. There's so many people here. Everyone is so diverse here. Everyone is so smart here, right? Same thing about New York. Oh, New York, there's so many people here. Everyone's young. Like, two people who are very much the same type of person, right? Could be gender, could be ethnicity, even could be profession, could be roughly the same age, but yet they live in the same city and have a completely different perspective on not just what's happening in the city, but what could happen in the city. They have a different perspective of what reality could be for them. And belief is everything. Belief is everything. And I always say, our belief is our reality. And it really is. It's what we believe is truly what we achieve. It sounds so corny, but it's the truth. And so when I look at those two different people, right, that come to us with matchmaking, normally you go dig deep in the person who said, oh, there's nothing in DC, there's nothing in New York. They rarely date, right? They don't believe that they're ever going to be married or be in a significant relationship. They think that, everyone in the opposite sex is bad. They have all of these negative dispositions. But then you look at someone, the flip side is that they're all positive. Like, oh, it can be done, it can't be done. And while I don't have the statistics to back this up, just because there haven't been any strong longitudinal studies around this, but I believe that those who have the belief end up doing much better in the matchmaking process, right? They're the ones who end up, dating more. They end up, and why is that? The reason why is because as we believe is what we actually see. And so this is very, very important as it relates to every aspect of our life. Whether it's business, whether it's health, every aspect of our life. I mean, if we don't have hope, then what do we really have? I mean, why are we even here? If we don't believe that tomorrow is going to be a little bit better than today, right? Yeah. Then what do we have, right? We don't. We're all Donald Trump, right? That's who we are, And so at the end of the day, hope is everything. And so when it comes to the message that was being perpetrated by this show is that was such a damaging message because I mean, I'm black. My wife is black. My parents are black. Her parents are black, right? I know that when I grew up in my household, I had a mother and father who loved each other. I knew that the fact that my mother knew that my father loved her unconditionally, it made her a better person. I know the fact that my father knew that my mother loved her, loved him, made unconditionally, made him a better person. And I damn for sure know the fact that they both had that love going both ways made me a better person. And that, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about having strong family units that therefore create strong communities that therefore create a strong world.
Interview's over. Just kidding. Where's my mic so I can throw it? And that is what is so important. That is the message that I feel that we don't communicate enough from women's perspective and from men's perspective. I'm going to veer off just a little bit. I have notes and what I want to talk about, but I want to talk about this. I was just having a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about settling and completely veering off topic for anybody out there in video land. Completely veering off topic. We were talking about how us as black women, I was talking about, let me just say so I don't put anybody else's perspective. We've gotten high on this thing of settling. Why are you settling for that kind of a man? Or why are you settling for this type of thing? And I was I'm 39, I'm single, I'm in Atlanta. We're going to talk about those statistics in a minute. But she's younger than me, she's 32. And she has this gentleman that she's interested in. And her girlfriend was telling her, yeah, he's not good enough for you. Why would you settle for that? And so I was talking to her. I was like, well, what are you settling for? Exactly. I was like, because as we get older, we start talking about what we're settling for. We're making these lists of things that we like and things that we don't like. But what are you really settling for? I myself, I have dated at a certain level or a certain caliber, shall we say. And I met this gentleman who was not quite at that caliber of men that I'm used to dating. So I went to my mom and I said, Mom, I really kind of like this guy, but the caliber is not quite there and I don't want to settle, right? And she asked me, she's like, what are you settling for, LaNée? She's like, is he nice to you? And I said, yeah. She said, is he respectful to you? I said, yeah. Opens your door, treats you nice? Yeah. Rubs my back, cooks me dinner? Yeah. She's like, so what are you settling for? She's like, we as women, a lot of us will continue to be single if we keep talking about what we're settling for, as opposed to what we want in a relationship. And what you just said is what she told me. So she's married, and she said, there's only two things you need to worry about when you're dating and when you're looking for a relationship. One is, will they love you when times are good and bad? And two, will they hold your hand and walk down the beach with you and you guys are okay in silence? And I was like, wow, that's so deep. And what you just talked about right now is just love. Like, when we're talking about being single or not being single, or man or woman or relationships, I think we've gotten so far away from what's most important to us, which is just love, building, making each other a better person, making our family a better person, making our community a better person. We get caught up in everything that's going on around us, all the stuff that's on TV, the media, the bling, the hype, and we don't just we're not just loving on our brothers and sisters or our husbands and our wives. And that's what's keeping us from being married. Not quote unquote what's happening with interracial relationships. And we're going to talk about those statistics as well, but just getting down to the bare bones of what do you want for yourself in your life? Right. How can you make your life better? How can you make someone else's life better? How can we come together and build our families and build our communities and get away from having that mindset of settling or what is it? Why are we taking this away from somebody and things of that nature? And again, like I said, completely rambled off topic, but you talked about love, and that made me think about that. Like, we just really got to get back to love.
Yeah, I don't think this is off topic at all, because at the end of the day, if we can't get back to love, right, then what do we have, right? But it's interesting that you're saying settling and how you're describing it, because that's the trap, right, that we all fall into, is this notion of, okay, we're settling for something that we're not deserving of. And what I find to be really interesting is that we don't know. We really don't know. And this is something that, a lot of folks will just talk about this, but I'm telling you, I live this through our agency. I live it through the agency. So not just am I doing the studies, but I'm also seeing it firsthand through these clients, is that the number one issue that folks have is they're just not aware of who they are. They don't know what their values are. They don't know how they communicate. They truly don't know what they need in a relationship opposed to what they want in a relationship. And the issue is that if you don't have this self-awareness, if you don't have the self-love, if you're not willing to make yourself vulnerable, if you don't know what you need, if you don't know any of those things, well, then how can you go about determining whether or not you're settling? You can't. So what you then do is you create this list of things that you have never truly realized, but you perceive other people have realized through Instagram or through television or through the Real Housewives of Atlanta or whatever show that you're watching. You perceive all of these things and say, you know what? That to me is what a good woman is, or that to me is what a good man is, and I won't accept anything less. But in actuality, you're doing yourself a huge disservice, because the only thing that we truly need, and you broke this down well, or your mother broke this down well, kudos to your mom, is that, in my opinion, is that we need to have that person. So when she's talking about walking without saying anything, holding a hand, you need to have someone who you can communicate with effectively. Communication is the Achilles heel of all relationships, not just romantic, business and platonic. If you can't communicate with someone, you have nothing. A lot of people talk about, finance is the number one reason why people break up. No, it's not finance. What it is it's the fact that you can't agree on your finances, right? It's the communication. So that's one big chunk. The second big chunk is that you share values. Values are your rule book to life. That's what you truly live for. If you can't share, if the person doesn't have your values, right, and you can't communicate with them, then you don't have anything. So do you settle on those? No. Those are things that you don't settle on. You don't settle for someone who doesn't have your values. You don't settle for someone who you can't communicate with. But everything else out of that, you could begin to compromise on. You could begin to take less of, because those are non-needs. The needs are values and communication. And every bit of research, I've been married for 15 years, and I could tell you, going through the ups and downs, is that at the end of the day, what saves us when we're going down is the fact that we can communicate and we share each other's values, which means that we see things the same way. If we didn't have those two things, there's nothing else that could have held us together. And so what you said is, I think, perfect. And your mother needs to be a relationship expert. That's what this is about.
My mom is awesome. I'm glad that I can go to her and talk to her about those things, because sometimes this is a whole nother conversation. You can't go to your girlfriends or your friend. You need to go to somebody who's been in a marriage or who's going through something, so they can shine some light, or a matchmaker that can help you deal with your ordeals. But again, another conversation. So let's talk about, you said currently today, you said those of us that are breathing today, 88% of black men are married to black women. Which I thought was, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was high. I just moved to Atlanta from Phoenix. Have you ever been to Phoenix, Paul?
I've been to Phoenix,
okay.
but just in and out. Okay. But I think I know what you're going to say.
When I heard those statistics, and I lived in Phoenix, I'm like, where are 88% at? They not there. But right. Sometimes I think so. I think that when you, so first is the 88% is way larger than what I would have assumed or thought or known. And I trust and believe you, because this is what you do. Right. I think that sometimes people may think that their pool or environment is not well based on where they live, their surroundings. Because now that I've moved here to Atlanta, I see a lot of black couples, south and the east. On the West Coast, it's a lot more diverse. You have a lot more interracial dating. And if that's what you see and know, then I can see how you may go that way. And then to have that reinforced with media. So another reason I want to talk about this is to give hope to people that are like, I didn't realize there was 88% of black men married to black women. Because if you don't live that, you don't know that. Right. So let's talk about that.
Sure. No, this is a very fair question. I know that when a lot of folks jumped on in the comments, they're like, "Hold on for a second, Paul. There's this Pew Research study in 2013 that shows that 50." Here's the thing. This is the thing. The 88% number is exactly what I said it is. It is all of us living and breathing. So that includes your grandparents, right? That includes your parents, right? It definitely includes a segment of folks that for some reason people like to dismiss and say, oh, they don't count, right? Because you're 60 years old, you don't count. Like whatever. Someone said that, but it includes everyone, right? It includes everyone. Now, as you get younger, the percentage of Black people that are married to Black people married within our ethnicity, does that drop? Absolutely it drops.
Okay.
But the other point that I made in the video is it drops for everyone.
That's what you said.
Pew Research will tell you that every ethnic group in the United States has seen a decrease, not only in their marriage rate, which that is important. There's a significant decrease in everyone's marriage rate, more so in our marriage rate, right, than others. But there's a significant decrease in the marriage rate among every ethnic group. But there's also an increase in the percentage of every ethnic group that's now marrying outside of their ethnicity. This is something that's not new. And this is why, I mentioned this in my video, is because that trend is something that's not new. But the overall summary is that even if you look at the trend, even if you look at those who are just getting married today, like you just look at Black men that are just married today, right? Still, the majority of Black men are still marrying Black women today. So that's why there's no argument. And some people I've seen in the comments, some people have said, well, Paul, what you're doing is you're creating false hope for Black women, because these numbers clearly show that it's only 70% of Black men today. And so that means that, by the year 2050, it's only going to be half. Well, guess what? 2050, you might not even be around 2050. Like, you're not even be here 2050. The point is today. The point is right now. The point is that when you look at the message, and that's really what I'm trying to focus on, is like, you could split numbers any way you want to make a number look, right? You could look at trends and say anything is going to happen, right? But at the end of the day, what the clip was attempting to do is exactly what you said in the beginning. And that is to say, Black women, you should have no hope in a Black man loving you. And my point is that that's false.
That's false.
It's patently false. Why do I know it's false? Because it's been false in all of my experiences. It's false in my current experience. It's false in all of the data that presents itself. It is false, it is false, it is false. But I understand if you live in Phoenix. I understand if you live in Utah. I used to live in Salt Lake City, Utah, where we used to play Count the Black People game. And we would see how many Black people we could find and we could only get to like that would be a week right there, right? I mean, I get it if you live in some of these areas. I also get it if you look at mainstream media. I totally get it. Mainstream media, I'm in mainstream media. I have a news program that comes on every week. Like, I understand mainstream media. Mainstream media is predominantly young, because let's put our business hat on, is all mainstream media, what they want is they want a younger audience, right? They want a younger audience with a lot of expendable income. So they want to go young. So they want to trend young. That's one thing. The second thing that mainstream media does is we need to stay popular. So we take whatever is controversial, whatever is hot, and we roll with it. So we don't want to talk about the families. We don't want to talk about the fact that the majority of Black men are actually married to Black women. That's boring. Right? What we want to talk about, what we want to show is, these 3 Black men, which is, by the way, that's what Married at First Sight did. They took 3 Black men. They said, these 3 Black men don't want any Black women. And these 3 Black women want Black men. So therefore, if you look at this, then, at the end of the day, is they want us to talk. They want us to do these things. And all I'm trying to say is if you weed through all of that garbage, what you realize is that it's a myth.
It's a myth.
And myths that perpetuate themselves impact our belief, and our belief impacts our hope, and our hope is everything.
And that is why I wanted to talk to you. I just wanted to make sure that I know I'm a single woman, but I know single women, and these are discussions that we have. We have this discussion. Do black men still have an interest in black women? Do black men still want to date black men? You see all these different groups on Facebook. You see all these different websites, things of that nature. And I think hearing it come out of the mouth of a black man makes it so much more impactful. Having someone dispute the rumors and the myths and the stereotypes, somebody of your caliber, somebody who's done the research, somebody who actually knows, like, it's not coming from, Joe Blow, like, you've taken the time, the energy, the effort. This is your profession. This is where you put your time and energy and effort in. And to have you say, this is not true. And then to have you stand up for black relationships and use your platform in that way. I was so impressed with you. Not that I'm not impressed with you on a regular basis, but just, you don't often see people of your stature take time to stand up for, it wasn't political, but it was something that needed to be said. And a lot of times you see people, they have that feeling, they take that 5 minutes and they think about it, and then, like, you know what, this is not my fight, or it's not my battle, or it's not my place. And they'll walk away. They feel the controversy, they feel the conflict, but they don't feel like it would appease their audience, so they'll leave it alone. So the fact that you had the 5 minutes and you still said, nah, we about to have this conversation, I was like, he gets it, and I want to talk to him. I want to sit down with him, because I do have these conversations with women on a regular basis. And then I was really impressed with your Atlanta statistics that I, since, moving from Phoenix to Atlanta, and we're going to close with this, but I wanted you to break this down for me because I didn't quite understand it. But you said, let's see, Atlanta, one of the largest black populations. The unmarried ratio of black women to unmarried black men is 1.3 to 1.
Correct.
And I wanted to have you explain that, because a lot of times when I'm talking to women, especially here in Atlanta, I've heard that it's like one man to every 13 women or something like that. So Can you talk to us about that statistic versus the negative statistic?
Sure. And I'd say I'm glad that you're bringing this up. And this is a great time for me to talk about where I get some of my research from. Because I think it's also important that we are getting our research from credible people, right? And so a lot of my research, in particular, this stat comes from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ivory Toldson. Dr. Ivory Toldson is a professor at Howard University, and he is one of the foremost researchers on this particular topic. So what is also fascinating to me is that when you look at, say, Pew Research, people will say, which, by the way, all of the Pew Research numbers check out in my mind. But you look at someone that says, you know what, I looked at this Pew Research study, Paul, and here's how I dissected it. But yet there's someone by the name of Dr. Ivory Toldson who focuses on, like, this is what he does. And the fact that his information has not been surfaced is fascinating to me. But it makes sense. Why? Because if his information is surfaced, it makes this other stuff less controversial. And that's what we've got to understand here. And, I'm trying not to go off on a tangent, but, it's almost like, for me. So it's interesting for me. I grew up in New York. So I grew up in all black Jamaica, Queens, and then Long Island, which, by the way, Long Island wasn't black when we first moved there, but because of white flight, it turned all black. So I grew up in, like, these all black neighborhoods. And then once I got to high school, my parents, we had moved to Northern Virginia. So we moved to, I was in a public school there. I was in this all white high school, right? That's how we called it, right? Majority, whatever, how we want to be politically correct. It was a white school, right? And then I went off to a white college. I went to Old Dominion University, and then I went to Georgetown University, all right? Now, I had graduated, by the time I graduated from Georgetown, right, I remember someone telling me about Black Wall Street, okay? I remember someone saying I was like, Black Wall Street, is that, like, in Manhattan? Is that a street in Manhattan? Like, what's this thing, Black Wall Street? And I remember then going back and researching about Tulsa and understanding Black Wall Street and asking, why was this never ever brought up in my high school, in college courses, etc.? Why was this never brought up? Now, I'm not going to run off and go run off in the conspiracy section right now, but I will say that there is so much history, so much information that has happened within the Black community over the years that we all know about that doesn't get surfaced into the mainstream. We all know this, right? We all know this. So why would information about the strength of our family units be any different? Just think about that. Why would it be any different? And so we have to be proactive in going after this information and not just accept what we see on a cable network as evidence of what's really happening in our communities, right? We have to be conscious and aware of the information. And so, long story short is, so Dr. Ivory Toldson is someone who I go to, as well as other folks and other resources, but he's the most credible source on this. Now, what he says about Atlanta is that a lot of folks like to use Atlanta as the example of basically the destruction of the Black family, right? So they say, here's the perfect example. You've got a lot of Black people in Atlanta, not just in Atlanta, but greater Atlanta. And you have all single women and you've got all men running amok. So either the men are just, having sex with as many women as possible, or they're gay, right? It's one of the two. That's the deal. Now, Dr. Ivory Toldson went in and he started dissecting the information. And what he found is that for every 1.3 unmarried Black female, there's one male, right? So for every 1.3, there's one male. So you think there's 130 Black women who are unmarried. It means there's 100 Black men who are unmarried. Now, out of that number of Black men that are unmarried, are there a number of men who are incarcerated or who are homosexual and not interested in a woman, or who might just not be at a stage in life that they're not interested in someone? Absolutely. But if we went through and dissected the women, we're going to find like the same thing. We're going to, not the same numbers, but we're going to find women who are, no longer interested I shouldn't even say no longer, just never, not interested right now, right? Or for whatever reason, not interested. And so you can whittle those numbers down. And I'm sure there are people that are watching like, oh yeah, but the guy's number is going to drop. But it doesn't drop to 8-1, right? It doesn't drop to 800 women to 100 men. And here's my point. My point is what if it did? What if it did drop? Let's just run with that hypothetical, because we know it's false. But let's just run with that hypothetical. There's 8 women to every 1 man. Let's just run with that, for example. What's the ultimate point that what is the point that's being made? Is the point that's being made Black women need to have other options than Black men? I say love is love. I say look for love wherever it comes, right? Wherever it's coming from, I say look for love. For me, I was looking towards a Black woman. That was my thing. But not everyone has to get down like that. So is the point to have other options? Because if that's the point, I agree. You should just be looking for love wherever it comes. Is the point that you should not be dating? You should give up on the hope of marriage? Why? Still, 80% of the country, right, is married, right? So why give up on that? Like, what are all the reasons? And I think at the end of the day, what the larger looming reason is, hey, just give up. Just don't have any hope. And the point that I just keep trying to fight against is that when we lose our hope, we die. Right? When we lose our hope, we die. And I'm not just trying to say, oh, have hope with no evidence. I'm out here trying to point to every person. Dr. Ivory told to do this. Look at the research. Look at the beauty. Come talk to my clients. I'm trying to show that there's competing evidence for all of the crappy evidence, that's out here. That's really all I'm trying to All I'm trying to push. It's not a pie dream. It's not, pie in the sky dream that I'm trying to push. I'm trying to push what reality actually, what it is, what it is today. This may not be what it is tomorrow, right? This may not be what it is 10 years from now, 15 years, but today, right now, as we look, what's today's date? What's today's date? Today's December 8th, 2015, Tuesday at 1:51 Eastern Standard Time. Right now, this is what the data says. The data says this.
Thank you, Mr. Paul C. Brunson, for sitting down with me today. I mean, this interview has actually gone better than I initially anticipated. I was extremely nervous when we got started, and talking to you has been like just sitting down talking with one of my homeboys.
We're family. That's another thing, is we're family. Like we are. We're family. And that's the other. Well, I'm not gonna go into the whole
thing.
Oh
yeah, we still got a couple minutes. We got a little bit of time. Tell them what it is.
This is the thing, is we are family, right? And what we have to understand is that we are stronger together than we are. The whole African proverb we know: if you want to run quickly, then you run alone. But if you want to run a long distance, you need to run together. And we are in this thing called life for the long run. We're not in it for just today. We're in it for the long run. We've got to run together. And that's what I'm trying to show, is that I love you. Like, here's the thing. I love my wife, but I also have love for you as literally as my family, right? And this is something that is not unique to me. I know that there are many men that feel the same way, as well as many female women that feel the same way. And so both as male, female, women, men, like, it's like, let's not allow what, actually, can I, because I never really pointed out like some of the larger messages. So like with the show, Married at First Sight, right? Do I think that the producers were sitting there saying, okay, let's see what we can do to destroy the Black community. Let's put together this clip. Like, no, I don't think that's what they were thinking. Mm-hmm. Now, what I do believe is they were thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be controversial. People are going to talk about this. People are going to disagree about this. People are not going to like this. And because they're not going to like this, you're going to come up with videos. And then they're going to have interviews around the videos to talk about this. And this is what we want. And oh yeah, also, none of the Black couple that we had on the show wasn't successful. So this would be supporting evidence, because it'll show that Black men are not interested in Black women. And oh yeah, we also have another show coming out called Black Love that is just focused on Black love. And so therefore, this will be good. Like, those are the business decisions that they made. But the problem is that I don't think they thought for 1 second what that would do to psyche. I don't think they thought for 1 second what that would do to perspective. You know, I had dozens of people send me messages that said, Paul, I watched the clip and then I lost hope. Think about that. I watched the show. They watched the show, that one episode, and said, I lost hope in ever having a relationship with a Black man. Like, now, was the show thinking about that? Maybe, maybe not. Did they care about that? Definitely not. What I'm saying is I care about that. That's more important than anything. Our hope is the most important thing. And so we just need to be conscious and aware of the fact that this love that we're talking about, right, it exists, right? It exists.
How can people find you? Because I know people are going to be like, how do I get in touch with Paul? How can people get a hold of you? What's your social media? Give people your information.
Sure. All right. So I'm gonna say, you say, Paul, I just asked you for your information, but here's what I would suggest. I would say the first thing that folks should do is follow someone like Dr. Ivory Toldson, right? He is someone who is incredibly knowledgeable on this particular topic. Dr. Ivory Toldson, Toldson, right? Follow someone like Dr. Ivory Toldson. That's one thing. And also just Google, research. He wrote a piece on all the myths around data in the Black community. Like, follow someone like that. But in terms of me, is I'm at Paul C. Brunson. at Paul C. Brunson everywhere. So on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, LinkedIn. My website is paulcbrunson.com. So I try to keep it consistent.
Hey, consistency. Hey, that's branding. Everything got to be consistent. I cannot say thank you enough for taking the time to sit down and talk to me. It has been more than I imagined. I think that the people are going to really get an opportunity to walk away from this video with hope and feeling good and being proud, and seeing, even just this conversation between a Black man and a Black woman, just a loving conversation. Like, we need to have more of these conversations. They don't have to be with celebrities. They don't have to be through Skype. They can be with just somebody that you're walking down the street and you see a hello, a hi, eye contact. Hey, brother, how you doing? Hey, sister, how you doing today? That engagement, that community. We, in our community, in our day-to-day lives, have the power to impact and go up against those stereotypes that are being perpetuated by others outside of our community, when we inside of our community know better. So
we know better. I'm sorry. Can I know we run. Can I say one quick thing?
This is your stage.
Well, actually, I got to go. No, you just said something really key, and I could see someone watching this and saying, because you said we need to have these conversations. I could see someone saying, well, I live in Utah, right? Or I live in Phoenix. Who do I have this conversation with? There are many people who are facilitating live discussions, traveling live discussions. So people that I know off the top of my head, Chris Kazi-Roll, who now lives in LA, but he's from Brooklyn. But look up him. He has this thing called the Convo, right? Where he goes around the Convo live. He goes around and he has these discussions. There's a woman by the name of Alex Merritt, where she's got love and I think it's love, dessert and discuss. But Alex Merritt is another one with her partner Bobby. I mean, there are many people. Just go to meetup.com, right? Meetup.com, and look, there are many of these discussions are happening. And the cool thing is they're not just happening around the context of, oh, let's talk about relationships, right? It could be around, all right, we're going to talk about, business and technology, but this becomes part of the conversation as well, because it's all interrelated. And so these conversations are being had actively all over the country. Just go after it. I think that's the theme, is don't sit back and just take what people are feeding you. You've got to go out, you got to get that nutrition yourself. Because if we just take what we're being fed, we're going to eat McDonald's all day and die, right? We need to go out and find all those ingredients for the green smoothie and get the green smoothie, because the green smoothie is what we really need to be having. All right.
Green smoothie is life, is love.
Is life. Is right.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you to everyone that has watched this video. I hope that you walk away with something. Please make sure you leave a comment, leave a note, share this with somebody that you think can find it impactful. And I will see you on the other side. This is LaNée Javet, CEO and founder of Colsire.com. Peace. And we're out. Yay!
Peace out.